In the 1980s, Saturday morning wasn't just part of the weekend, it was the weekend. For a few hours every week, kids across the country were all doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. The same TV glow in the dark living room. The same cartoons playing in the background. The same cereal poured into oversized bowls. Today, kids can watch anything they want, whenever they want. Cartoons never really stop anymore. They're always there, waiting. But back then, it didn't work like that. You had one morning, one small window, and if you missed it, it was gone. Nothing in the world was going to pull you away from that TV. And if you were one of those kids, you're about to remember exactly how it felt. Before we even talk about the cartoons, we have to talk about the ritual. Because every Saturday morning started the exact same way, no matter where you lived. You woke up early, not because anyone told you to, but because you wanted to. Earlier than school days. Earlier than your parents. The house was still quiet. Still dark in some rooms. You'd step carefully out of bed, walk past your parents' door as quietly as possible, hoping the floor wouldn't creak. Because if they woke up too early, sometimes the TV stayed off a little longer, and that was not a risk you were willing to take. Then straight to the kitchen. No hesitation. Cabinet open. Bowl out. Cereal poured fast. Maybe it was something sweet, maybe whatever was left, but it didn't matter. That was part of the routine. Then you made your way to the TV, sat way too close. Volume turned low, wrapped up in a blanket like it was part of the experience. And for a moment, everything was still. No noise, no distractions, no responsibilities, just you, and whatever was about to come on next. For a lot of kids, this was the first real introduction to superheroes. Not in comic books, but on screen. Every week, the same larger-than-life characters appeared like clockwork, flying, running, saving the day before most people had even finished breakfast. You didn't question anything, you just watched. The action, the music, the voices, it all felt bigger than anything else on TV at the time. And somewhere in your mind, you picked your. Then came something completely different, smaller, slower, but just as memorable. A whole world built around tiny blue characters living in a place that felt simple, but somehow magical. Each one had a personality, a role, a name you didn't forget. And every week, it was the same struggle, the same chase, the same feeling that something could go wrong at any moment, but usually didn't. It was calm, but never boring. Familiar, but never repetitive. And once it started, you stayed right there. By the mid-80s, things shifted into pure imagination. A single room became anything you could think of. One minute it was normal, the next it was something completely different. Adventures that didn't follow rules, didn't need logic, and didn't try to explain themselves. Characters you already recognized, but now younger, louder, and somehow even more energetic. And that theme song, once it started, it stayed in your head for the rest of the day. You didn't even try to forget it. This one had a formula, and everyone knew it. A mystery would show up. Something strange. Something that didn't make sense. The group would split up, someone would get scared, someone would have a plan, and by the end, every single time, the truth came out. You knew the pattern, you expected it, but you still watched all the way through, just to see how it would happen this time. It wasn't about being surprised, it was about being part of something familiar. This was where things started to feel bigger. The stories felt more connected, the characters felt like they had lives outside of what you were watching. It wasn't just one adventure, it felt like part of something larger. You started to recognize names, voices, patterns, and even if you didn't realize it at the time, this was an introduction to a much bigger world that would only grow later on. But back then, it was simple. You watched, you followed along, and you stayed until it ended. After all the action, things slowed down again. Different kind of humor. Less energy, but more attitude. A character who didn't rush, didn't panic, didn't really care about anything except comfort. And somehow, that made it even funnier. You didn't need big moments. You didn't need action scenes. Just the timing, the expressions, and the voice were enough. It was a different pace, but it worked. And when everything else finished, these were still there. Fast, unpredictable, chaotic in the best way possible. No rules, no structure, just constant movement and energy. Characters you didn't need to be introduced to. They were already part of everything. One episode turned into another, then another. And before you realized it, hours had already passed. It felt like it would go on forever. And for a while, it did. And it didn't stop on Saturday morning. After school, it continued. Different shows, same feeling. More action, more battles, more characters to choose from. Heroes transforming, teams forming, rivalries that never really ended. Every kid had a favorite, one character they followed more than the others. And somehow, that choice became part of who you were. You talked about it the next day, argued about it, replayed it in your head. It wasn't just watching anymore. It became part of everyday life. And then, every single Saturday, it happened. The last cartoon ended. The screen didn't go black, but something changed. The energy shifted. The sound was different. You didn't need anyone to tell you. You just knew. That was it. Saturday morning was over. You sat there for a few seconds longer than usual, maybe hoping something else would start, maybe just not ready to move yet. But eventually, you got up, turned off the TV, and the rest of the day began. It didn't disappear overnight. At first, nothing really changed. The shows were still there. The routine still existed. But slowly, things started to shift. More channels, more options, more ways to watch. And once cartoons became something you could watch anytime, something changed. Because when something is always available, it stops feeling like an event. It stops feeling like something you have to be there for. What made those mornings special wasn't just the shows. It was the timing, the routine, the fact that you couldn't pause it, rewind it, or come back later. You were either there, or you missed it. If you were there, you don't just remember the cartoons. You remember the feeling, the quiet house, the early morning light, the sound of the TV before anyone else woke up. It was a small part of the week, but it felt bigger than anything else at the time. We didn't think about it while it was happening. We didn't realize it would end. But looking back now, it was something rare, something specific to that time, something that doesn't really exist anymore. And honestly, we were lucky to have it.